football coach at Mississippi State. Coach, always appreciate your time. I know it's maybe not as much fun to talk right now, and we certainly understand that, but appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. This weekend, kind of on the whole, you look at your guys, and I can't help but think they're playing hard and they're giving it all they've got, and it's just not enough in the tank right now. What's your takeaway from the 3 games in College Station this weekend?
Well, for the most part, man, our kids have shown up and they've competed. I can't fault them for that, man. They play hard every time. We've gotten to be a little short in our pitching staff, and Friday night we have the lead in the 7th. I think we have the lead in the 7th on Saturday, and not only just losing a game, but we've lost so many games late that it's not good for morale. I can tell you that. Just when our kids understand and they totally know what's on the line, and they're competing their tails off, and then and my bullpen guys, we haven't been great lately, but man, it's the only ones we got, and they're bringing it to the yard every day too. They just, they've had some failure. They're probably not the most confident bullpen right now, and we're just having a hard time finishing games.
Coach, when you look at the way your starters have performed, and you mentioned the bullpen guys, you just don't have a lot of options out there. I know there's only 1 weekend left in the regular season, but is fatigue an issue for this team right now? Or are you worried about your arms just running out of gas at this point?
Yeah, it's a little bit of what's going on, but it's more confidence than anything. I think if you look at the stuff is still good, and we haven't, we don't have a lot of other options. So the same guys are running out there right now, but fatigued a little bit. But I think fatigue hits everybody this time of year. Even in 19, I felt like Ethan Small kind of fatigued a little bit this time of year. Like, everybody deals with that a little bit. It's just, it's just the confidence level is the biggest thing.
Chris, I know we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, but RJ Yeager was named as a finalist for the Ferris Trophy earlier today, and this season that he's had, and the weekend that he's had, where he's just kept on performing, that's a really cool honor for him in just one season with you guys.
Yeah, he's a stud. I mean, I hate that he's having to go through the season and we're going, and when you get a chance to coach some guys like this, and he's just so much fun to coach. He just brings it every day. You can see why he was a captain for 2 years before he got here. Just a very mature kid, and man, his numbers are as good as any hitter in our league, especially when you look at league play. What he's done as an SEC during the SEC slate is not, man, you haven't seen that a lot, and he's just had a really good year.
Hey, more of a big picture question. We got the news last week that it looks like conferences are going to have the ability in the pretty near future to kind of go away from equivalency and move toward head count. And it feels like, especially in the SEC, that's going to be a huge deal for baseball. What have you heard at this point from either league people or John Cohen about timeline and maybe bigger picture? What does that mean for you to, potentially have 35 scholarships or 25 or wherever that number lands as opposed to the 11.7?
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, we've been waiting for that for years. I mean, I haven't heard a lot about it. I know that's the legislation that they're trying to push, and we're going to see a lot of changes here, I think, in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, just in all of college athletics. But, when you hear people talk about, paying players and doing all this, and we're sitting back going, God, I just wish my guy was not having to pay for part of the school, and it doesn't happen everywhere, and it's very rare that baseball programs make money. But in a situation like ours, our players, they deserve to be on a full scholarship like other athletes. And why we're not, I still don't understand. I'll leave those fights, like I've always said to Coach Polk. He's fought it for years. But if they do let the conferences decide, I think our conference will decide to take care of the student athlete. And not just in baseball, but it's in all sports. But in ours, it's been frustrating because we're at the lowest of everything. Lowest amount of coaches per player, lowest amount of scholarship per player. You just go across the board. Baseball is not. We must have done something to piss off the NCAA because baseball's down there on everything. And so it'd be nice to see if more scholarships, more coaches, more just more for the kids on that side because they deserve it.
Is there a scenario we've heard about grow the game initiatives through the years and wanting to get more kids involved, and sometimes that's maybe more minorities or inner city kids involved. Is there a scenario where if college baseball becomes a more viable option to get a full scholarship, then there is a chance to grow the game and get more kids trending toward college as opposed to, my only shot is to go play pro ball?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that's one of our, we probably have the lowest amount of minorities in our sport too, but that's one of the biggest reasons is, we could get more players, more minorities into college baseball, and not just as players, but in time they become coaches, they become assistant coaches, they become staff members. They're, you see all these different things that can happen in your sport if it's treated like the other sports. But right now we're just not. It's just, and I'm going, in another month from now we go into the draft, and sometimes it's hard. You're trying to talk a kid to come to school and not sign. And he's going to turn down X amount of dollars, and then he's got to pay this amount on the other side. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, and a lot of times that is some minority players that we deal with. So we're, I think it could change the landscape of what, college baseball looks like in a decade. It'll take a little bit of time, but I think it could make a difference.
So we've heard the 11.7 over and over and over through the years. The third paid assistant coach became a hot conversation a couple of years. That got voted down. In a practical standpoint, what would that mean to you to be able to have another paid assistant or another couple of paid assistants if it was approved along those? How would that change things on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's just annoying is what it is. It's just a lot of small annoying things that you deal with. But there's nobody that should be working in college athletics as a volunteer. Like, we should be past that point. Just, I don't care what sport, whatever. My volunteer coach, Mike Bianco's volunteer coach, Scott Berry's volunteer coaches, they work 100 hours a week. Nobody should be asked to volunteer. I think that's ridiculous. It's just because people haven't wanted to pay that. But these guys still, they show up and they work that way. And they do the same thing in the other sports too. So it's not just in ours. But I think that's one of the big pushes of our commissioner is they're wanting to get away from the volunteer type of thing, that nobody should have to volunteer, or you should have to work and not have benefits. This doesn't make any sense, but they show up every day like everybody else. And the player, we need them. We need more players. We need more in our sport, BP pitchers and fungoers and things like that, just so that we can get the right amount of work, I think would be huge. And recruiters too, because a lot of times, if you just have two guys out recruiting, those two guys are killing it, but they're missing their kids' little league games. They're missing, it'd be nice if you had a couple more to where one guy's life as a recruiter for me. It was all consuming, and so it'd be nice to have a little more help, in college baseball.
Coach, you mentioned the draft.
Get me on a rant.
You got a good. Oh yeah, feel free. You mentioned the draft.
I'm already in a bad mood to start, so.
We appreciate the honesty and the candor. How about that?
Yeah, man, it's great.
Well, nobody should be happy in my seat right now, so that's the truth. So.
Looking at your lineup, you've got a good chunk of guys who are draft eligible, but they're also eligible to come back for another season, be it a COVID year, or they just still have eligibility remaining. At this point, do you have a pretty good feel for who's going to be back on your roster next year?
I have some, but I don't have a great feel. I don't think you totally – I tell families all the time because they go through the draft once or maybe twice. I've done this 30-something years at a high level, and I still don't understand the draft. Things will happen in the draft, and I'm like, how is that guy back in school? And then you look up, and they took a guy, and you're like, how is that guy in pro ball? Like, you just don't always get it. And one person could see something or whatever. So it's a massive Rubik's Cube is what I call it right now. The pieces and the turning and the high school kids, and now we have transfer portal, and then you have the kids in your program. And COVID has made those kids be a bigger group, You have some kids who could come back for a senior year, but they're graduated. So I think all of us in college baseball, but especially the SEC, we're dealing with a lot of, pieces right now and trying to figure out what happens with those pieces. And so I'm trying to figure out what our guys, we're for them going to pro ball. I want them to go to pro balls if it's their time. I don't want them to go if they're undervalued, but the reality is we sell to our guys, if you're not a first rounder out of high school, then we think the best route for you to come is be in the SEC and play here for 2 or 3 years. And when it's your time, I tell them I don't beg you to come back during that time if it's the right place for you and you're ready to go. I think it's time to go. So because that's the best path to get to the big leagues is coming out. You come out of one of these SEC programs and you've had success, it puts you in a good spot.
Coach, I want you to be in a good mood, but I'm all for unfiltered Chris Lemonis. Great stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. So I don't know if my team's for unfiltered. So, but we, just being honest.
Thanks for your time.